Welcome to Peculiar Paths to Peace, where some find it kooky, others find relief. I'm Adam Freilich, and this is episode 1, entitled Introduction and Squirrels. This episode serves as an introduction to who I am, what this podcast is about, and what I'm hoping to achieve. If you like this episode and what I'm trying to do, or want to know more and want to connect with me, then you can check me out on Facebook, Instagram, and currently on YouTube. All of those places are at Peculiar Paths to Peace. Now, let's get a disclaimer out of the way. The content here should not be taken as medical advice. The content here is for informational purposes only, and because each person is so unique, please consult your healthcare professional for any medical questions, advice, or guidance. So let's get started with the introduction. Who am I? Again, my name is Adam Freilich. I am 35 years old and live in Alabama with my husband, Harry. We have 2 dogs, an Australian Shepherd named Skylar, a French Bulldog named Olivia, and we have 2 cats, a short hair named Kiki and a Persian named Murph. Now, my career background, or my background, is in political science and nursing. And again, although I am a registered nurse, I am not in any way representing myself to be a part of your medical healthcare professional team giving you any type of advice. This is just informational purposes. So let's get real now. Grab a cup of coffee, a tea, pull up a chair, and let's begin. So throughout my life, I have dealt with anxiety and depression. Most of the time, I am able to mask those external signs, and so you might not know that anything is really off, but internally, it's a hot mess of racing thoughts, negative self-talk, and an overall sense of pending doom. I'm trying to turn my thoughts and my thinking around from what I thought a peaceful and joyful life is or was. I used to think that peaceful was kind of an idea of a monk in the Himalayan mountains or something like that. But I'm trying to realize that if I have more joy and more peace throughout the day than I do those chaotic moments, that's ultimately the real goal, and it's the success. I'm trying to even wrap my mind around, even if it's a 41% good day and a 49% bad day, that it overall was still a good day. Now, if only I can get my mind to truly believe that. So that's kind of a little bit of why I started thinking about this podcast, Peculiar Paths to Peace. Very honestly, I have struggled with the creation of this podcast, still to this day. This is an idea that I had for almost a year now, and I've gone back and forth, ultimately just trying to decide if I'm the right person to do the podcast, or what right do I even have to try to create something like this. Half of me is thinking, no, I'm not the right person at all, because I lose my cool. I'm not always joyful. I'm not always peaceful. I have a lot of bad moments. And so I kind of felt like in some ways I was going to be some type of a fraud or some type of a liar when it came to the podcast, because I don't want people thinking, and I don't want to try to represent that I have it all together, like a role model to look up to. But on the other side, the flip side of that, I start thinking about, surely that's how we all kind of are. We're all wanting more peace and more joy in our life, but are probably struggling trying to figure out what will cause that peace and that joy. And not just in the moment, but what is going to cause that peace and that joy throughout our lives day to day when things are not going well. But I have decided to just do it, to share this idea with others. Still uneasy about this because, again, I don't want people thinking I'm a peaceful person. I'm not walking around saying namaste all the time. But I'm going to just do this and let's see what happens. What I want to do with this podcast is I want to explore things that I was doing, trying to create a peaceful and joyful life, but I was always doing it very inconsistently. I would start doing something and either it started working, so naturally I stopped doing it because I felt like I didn't need it anymore. Or I started doing something and naturally life gets in the way and things start bombarding those moments where I was trying to do these things and I just can't find the time to get back into the habit of it. I felt like this podcast, though, would force me to be more consistent with those goals that I have. And I felt like if I'm struggling with these things, then maybe some other people are too. So what I'm doing is I want to examine different techniques. So in psych lingo, that is called coping mechanisms. But these are different techniques or mechanisms that I classify into two very broad categories: daily management and crisis management. Daily management are daily habits or almost daily habits. You can even perhaps call them a ritual. It's just consistent things that we can do to help us be more grounded, have a grounded foundation each day so that when circumstances do arise, and don't we know they will, you are at least starting out in a good place. And the second category of crisis management, that is when you are freaking out and you're not having a good day and things are not going your way. And perhaps you're ruminating over all those negative things that happened or what you need to do or want to do or should have done. And how can we pull ourselves out of that? Now, here's some real talk. I have found that once I get upset, that there are many times that I can't have a good rest of the day. I am stuck replaying, reliving things in my mind. What if I would have said this or done this? Or should I have stood up for myself? Or I'm so embarrassed, this is more frequently, I'm so embarrassed for how I behave and what do they think of me now? There is a quote that I have a love-hate relationship with, and it says, "Was it a bad day or a bad 5 minutes that you milked all day?" And this speaks deeply to me. It's like, shout out, yes, that's me, but it's also the Debbie Downer version of that. Shout out, yes, unfortunately, that's me. And how do I stop? But honestly, it's just so frustrating to me because I want to pull myself out of that constant replay, that constant cycle. But most of the time, I just can't. So this podcast is for those people looking either for those daily habits or how to control those freakout moments. The title, Peculiar Paths to Peace, and the tagline of Where Some Find It Kooky, Others Find Relief, truly sums up everything about this podcast. We're going to explore all different things and techniques, and yes, some people might find that they're kooky or peculiar and weird, but others, it may truly resonate with them and finds that it brings them joy and peace. The good thing about this is that we can try these things out, just see if they work, maybe tweak a few things about them, and just see what happens. I think a lot of times we get way too safe in our current environment. We don't look outside of that comfort zone. We're too afraid to try something, or we don't stick with something long enough to see those results. So this podcast is where I'm going to potentially step out of my comfort zone in search of joy and peace. I would also like this podcast to have some feature interviews with people about their daily and or crisis management techniques. So health professionals, mental health professionals, spiritual religious leaders. I really just want to hear from other people's experiences and see if there are a few little breadcrumbs that I can pick up and help create a routine for myself. And that's really what it's all about. We all have coping mechanisms, some good, some bad, and some we cling to even though we desperately know they're not effective. But it's really about let's try to create a big toolbox of these coping mechanisms. That way, when life starts throwing things at us, we just open it up and figure out a healthy coping mechanism to combat what's happening. So that's the introduction of the podcast of what I'm trying to hope to create. So now let's talk about squirrels. But first, I would like to thank our sponsor, water. I don't have a sponsor, obviously. But let me tell you that water is important. So make sure you do drink water, but don't go overboard. Don't go crazy. Too much water can cause electrolyte imbalances, and that's not a good thing. Now, back to talking about squirrels, and more specifically, why I think my spirit animal is a squirrel. First, if you don't know what a spirit animal is, it is an idea that animals are able to symbolize things like aspects of a personality, skills or traits that you have or you would like to have, a situation or emotion that you recently experienced, or they can also provide guidance and intuitive understanding for you. For example, if you are about to do something and you need courage, you can think of an animal that exudes courage or strength or fearlessness and try to replicate those themes for you. So there's a song by Katy Perry, and she has a little part in there that says, "And you're going to hear me roar." It's a song about her kind of being repressed or being in a submissive type position, but she's made up her mind that she's had enough and she's not going to put up with that type of behavior anymore. She specifically sings, "I got the eye of the tiger, a fighter, dancing through the fire, 'cause I'm a champion, and you're going to hear me roar, louder, louder than a lion." With that being said, though, there are many cultures and many people that really connect with this idea of spirit animals or animal elements. And it's a much bigger part of their spiritual practice and a part of their everyday lives. There's actually a passage in the Christian Bible, and it's specifically Job chapter 12, verse 7 and 8. And it says, "But ask the animals, and they will teach you, and the birds in the sky, and they will tell you. Or speak to the earth, and it will teach you. Or let the fish in the sea inform you." But for this episode, we are just going to stick to that general definition, common understanding, loose idea of what a spirit animal is. So when I was trying to come up with a logo for the podcast, I drifted into thinking of what animals am I drawn to? And I've always been drawn to dragonflies, so much so that I keep saying I'm going to get a dragonfly tattoo. And here I am, 36. Did I say I was 35 at the beginning of this podcast? I totally just had a birthday. I'm 36. So here I am, 36, and still don't even have this dragonfly tattoo that I've been talking about for like 10 years. So I'm going to have to make that happen. And also recently I have been drawn to hummingbirds. When exploring these logos, and I just kept thinking to myself, why? Why am I drawn to dragonflies? Why am I drawn to hummingbirds? After thinking about it for a while, I realized that to me, these little animals represent peace. I see them fluttering around, hovering in the air, flying in multiple directions. And at the same time, they're so unique and they're so little that they can be easily missed. It's kind of like those peaceful moments and those joyful moments. They flutter in. There's flickers of them, but they tend to go away. I can't hold on to them. But there is another animal, though, that kept jumping in my mind, and unfortunately, I think it's a much better representation of myself, and that's a squirrel. Many times when I am walking by the window or walking outside, I'm struck by how a squirrel can look so serene and also lovable with that big old fluffy tail. I honestly just want to squeeze them and love them and hug them. But they're also have an extremely chaotic nature. And you know exactly what I'm talking about. You're driving down the road. All of a sudden you see a squirrel, and that squirrel sees you, and it freezes in place. It's freaking out, thinking maybe the car just go away. But your car still goes. And that squirrel makes up its mind to make a dash for it. But 2 seconds later, it's having those second thoughts about a decision and decides to dash back in that other direction, only to quickly realize, oh no, maybe I should have went back the other way. So it dashes back the other way. Meanwhile, I am literally swerving my car all over the road, trying to go in the opposite direction of the squirrel. So we're both looking erratic. And that, my friends, is exactly how I feel sometimes. Like life is going along so good until something pops up. Something starts coming my way. And I start freaking out inside, saying, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? So if you're like me, like a squirrel, definitely connect with me on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Peculiar Paths to Peace. That's PECULIAR, Paths to Peace. I did look up some spirit animal meanings for dragonflies, hummingbirds, and squirrels. So here's a brief summary. Listen up if any of these resonate with you. Let's first start with dragonflies. So dragonflies can be a symbol of joy and lightness. They also have a deep connection with thoughts and emotions. They can symbolize change and transformation and being open to experience new things. Dragonflies are about being able to see a situation from many different angles, meaning that if you're incorporating this into your life, that you can find solutions to problems that may elude others. Hummingbirds reminds you to enjoy life more and to release that negativity wherever it is in your life. They can also symbolize love and specifically reminds you to love yourself. And now let's get down to squirrels. Squirrels encourage you to inject more fun and laughter into your life and to enjoy the wonders of the world. The squirrel meaning is also about surrendering and letting things happen. Squirrels also gather and store things for later, so they can also represent being prepared for difficult times. So in that aspect, it doesn't seem like a squirrel is a bad thing, but surrendering and letting things happen, that is tough for me. Well, that is a wrap for episode 1. There were many errors throughout this, including I didn't even know how old I was, but it was kind of a recent birthday. But that's also a source of my anxiety, not my age, me trying to put something out there that is decent enough and not being a perfection all the time. So this is kind of a therapeutic thing for me to be able, well, not really, because it's a lot of anxiety, but a therapeutic thing for me to just post this, and with all the errors and the flaws, I sometimes do pottery. And what I have noticed when it comes to creating pottery is I am not drawn to those perfect pieces where everything is symmetrical, everything is looking beautiful. The thing I love the most are things that are slightly off. You can see the imperfections. You know a real human touched it, created it, had some emotion and thoughts and hopes while they were creating it. And so that's what I'm trying to do here. I'm trying to act like it's a piece of pottery with all these imperfections, and I am showcasing it to everyone. So until next time, be peculiar and love yourself. Bye. I can't believe I said I was 35, and it took me that whole time to figure out I was 36. I sure wish I knew how to edit instead of recording this thing over and over. Okay. Hashtag YouTube, here I come. I didn't even get my math correct. Like, who says 41% is better than 49%? Like, I meant 51. Seriously, I cannot spend time recording this again. This is just gonna have to work. Like, I gotta move on. I've got to make like dinner. Like, here we go. We're not even going to talk about me trying to talk into the microphone. And it wasn't even on. I like recorded half of this mess. And the microphone wasn't even on. Oh my gosh. Anybody out there that can help me, please help.